What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and refined review of Bernadetta, Ashnard, Rinkah, Fiora, Triandra, Young Caeda, and Reginn. So let us begin with Bernie, who did get a pretty nice weapon refine to her Persecution Bow. So it did give her +3 attack and also had the die bomb effect built in. And now with the weapon refine, she's able to get +10 attack and speed in the combat and also gets the guaranteed follow-up attack. So this does act as a pseudo half null follow-up and allows her to even double the enemies that have follow-up negation. And then at start of turn, she's going to be able to do the friendly fire 1 damage to herself and the allies in 2 spaces. This is the signature Bernadetta effect that we have seen before on Winter Bernadetta, on Spring Bernadetta. So this is going to be enabling the Wings of Mercy strats in Aether Raids offense, and this also allows you to use escape route a lot more efficiently with Bernie, and it also gives her minus on special cooldown. So this is kind of similar to the Pulse Up Blades effect that we've seen. So she can get the special cooldown charge on every single turn, and she can even pre-charge something like an AoE special. But mainly she's going to be able to use this to fire off 2 cooldown Deadeyes. And then she can also get even more attack and speed in the combat, and this is going to be dependent on the total damage that she has taken times 2. So it's a bit of a reference to her Vengeance build in 3 houses, and she's able to get up to +10 attack and speed on top of the +10 attack and speed that she can already get out of her weapon. And then finally she also gets the special cooldown charge on both her attacks and the enemy's attacks. So because of the special charging, she's able to have 2 cooldown Deadeye, and then she's going to be able to trigger that on her follow-up attack, and this is all while having the die bomb effect. So overall, Bernie is going to be functioning as a pretty amazing offensive bow cavalier, and now she can also just support you in Aether Raids offense if you're trying to set up any kind of Vantage or Wings of Mercy strats. And that's where I think she's going to be shining, because you no longer need to pull for Spring Bernadetta or Winter Bernadetta, and now the regular Bernie is going to be able to do that job. So if you're going to be building her up after her weapon refine, you can still run her base kit, because it is going to be a pretty decent option with the push skill adding to the chip damage, and then it is going to be adding to extra attack and speed because of the Vengeance effect in her weapon. She also is going to be able to make use of lull speed defense, and Blade Session is going to be the sacred seal of choice so that you can have the max offenses. Luna is something that you can run on a budget, but ultimately she wants to get Deadeye so that she can pierce through the damage reduction, and she can make use of escape route 4 really well because of the friendly fire 1 damage that she can do to herself. So this is going to be enabling Canto 1, which is a lot better than having the Canto remaining movement out of a Fortress skill. And then you can run Flared Sparrow so that you can get the pre-combat damage. And because she's going to be getting Canto 1 out of Escape Route 4, you can also run Defense Rest Smoke 3. So pretty much you're going to be able to run a Spring Bernie type of build on her, and she's going to be functioning fine. You can also use her in Aether Raids offense, and I do have a couple of videos that you can check out if you want to see how she can function on a Gale Force team and on a Vantage team. But basically she's going to be there for soaking up any kind of Bright Shrines, so that's why running double life and death is something you can do. You can even run an AoE special actually on her, because she's going to be able to pre-charge it, but still you can run Deadeye and then run her with Wings of Mercy. So mainly she's going to be helping the Wings of Mercy teams, and she can also enable the Vantage strat, so it's really helpful in Aether Raids offense because you don't really have to depend on your enemy to put you in the Wings of Mercy or Vantage range, and it's a lot more reliable to just do it yourself by using the friendly fire 1 damage. Finally, you can also use her with Assassin Strike and Flared Sparrow for stacking up the pre-combat damage, and inside attack speed is something that you can also run so that you can have even more offenses, because you're going to be needing to double so that you can trigger Deadeye on your double attack, unless you wait like 3 turns for the Deadeye to pre-charge itself. Ashnard gets an amazing free-to-play weapon refine that is really unique. So Gurgurant did give him +3 defense and also had the Iode Shield effect built in, and it did have the Rain effect built in, and this weapon refine doubles down on that. So now the Rain effect is actually going to be 4 spaces, which is quite a lot compared to even a Hold skill which has 3 range. So he's going to be able to have lull attack defense -5 in 4 space Rain, and also follow-up negation and guard effect. So this way he can support a lot of his allies by daunting the enemy's attack and defense, just getting rid of their visible buffs, and also inflict the enemy with guard effect, which is really helpful for our tanks. Follow-up negation is also helpful if your enemy does not have any kind of null follow-up effects, So having this kind of rain effect in his Weapon Refine is really unique because he can stack up a lot of supportive skills and function as an amazing support unit. Unfortunately, this Weapon Refine doesn't really give him any kind of guaranteed follow-up attack, so he'll have to rely on something like Quick Riposte, which is not the best thing, but unfortunately not a lot of options that he can do. He can also inflict -X debuff on foes' attack and defense in the combat, and this is going to be depending on 15% of his visible defense added by 5. So he's going to be able to debuff the opponent's attack and defense, and then finally he gets 30% damage reduction not only just on the first attack of the enemy but also on their follow-up attacks. And getting this kind of damage reduction is really nice for a tanky flyer like him who is going to be having really good mixed bulk. So even though Gurgurant is not going to be doing too much when it comes to the guaranteed follow-up attack, he's still going to be making for a really unique free-to-play support unit. And recently we did get a 5-star copy of him from the Grand Hero Battle Party, so everyone can make use of him really easily, and even at Unmerged, he's going to be providing some good support. So if you want to run him on a budget, then you can simply give him Attack Defense Catch 4 in the slot A, and he can run Near Trace so that he can get the Kanto. Thankfully, even if you don't run something like Gambit, you're still going to be able to get the damage reduction out of his Weapon Refine, and you can just double down on the rain support by running Attack Resistance Rain. Unfortunately, we don't really have the attack defense variant of the Sacred Seal, but whenever it happens, that is definitely going to be one of the best Sacred Seals for Ashnard so that he can double down for the support. The best slot B skill for Ashnard is definitely going to be Gambit 4 because he doesn't really have any kind of minus and special cooldown weapon, so he can run Aether or Miracle and get 50% damage reduction along with the damage reduction in his Weapon Refine, and you can also get 22 damage per attack. And because he doesn't really have any kind of guaranteed follow-up attack, you can run Quick Riposte as the Sacred Seal. You can also run Attack Defense Hold so that he can extend the range of your Daunt effect, which is always good with his Weapon Refine. And he can even double down on the support by running Guidance 4 or Soaring Guidance in his slot C. And I do think that Attack Defense Unity is pretty much the best slot A skill for him that he can run as of making this video. Maybe in the future we get some kind of other attack and defense skill, but until then, this is going to be the option with Disencounter Melee Sacred Seal, and he can still run Gambit for making him bulky, and he already gets the guard effect out of his Daunt effect in the weapon, so there's really no need of running any kind of Earth Fire boost or anything like that, so that's why Unity can function. And attack and defense are going to be the two boons where you're going to be capitalizing on, so it does work out pretty well. You can also use him with Guard Bearing 4 and run him with No Quarter. And if you give him Special Charges status, then he can retaliate back with No Quarter, which is going to be piercing through the damage reduction, and his damage output is actually not that bad because of this Weapon Refine. So it's definitely something you can do, and we do have Young Minerva with the free-to-play Weapon Refine, which can allow you to give him the Special Charges status. So No Quarter with Emblem Mart's special effect is going to be a 2 cooldown special that he can retaliate back with. Guard Bearing 4 does work out with No Quarter, otherwise Gambit is still fine that he can run on him, and you can also use him as a tank support in Aether Raids offense by running him with the Snack 4 skill and by also running Attack Defense Rain Sacred Seal whenever it comes out. So basically you can put him in front of your safe tanks and he's going to be daunting the enemy with his Weapon Refine and his Slot C skill and his Sacred Seal, and you're going to be able to tank much better with your safe tanks, which is something you can do in the Astra season. And finally, even if he's not the highest scoring option in Arena, you could still use him with R-Dual Flank 4, which we did get in the limited ephemera manual, and this is something that he can easily do in your Arena core because he's a flying unit and he already provides good support with his Weapon Refine, so even though he doesn't really score all that high, he can still be a good Arena unit, especially if you don't really want to invest in any kind of new option. Reginn gets a Weapon Refine in Remix, and not a lot changes for her unfortunately. So it still gives her +3 speed, and they didn't even lift the turn restriction from her Kanto 3. So it is only going to be active from turns 1 to 4, which is definitely unfortunate when we have seen the Kanto distant travel nowadays on many of the cavalry units. And she's going to be able to get +10 attack and speed in the combat and also +8 defense and resistance. She also gets the attack and speed debuff neutralization, so you no longer need to run a clash skill on her slot A, and she can still get the debuff neutralization while running something like Flared Sparrow. Her damage reduction does get upgraded, so Now she has got 40% damage reduction on foes' first attacks, including the brave hits, and then she gets the full null follow-up built into her weapon refine. She also gets the true damage based on 20% of her speed outside of the AoE specials, and this is definitely the best effect on Reginn because damage output is something that she needs nowadays, especially with so much damage reduction going on. She also gets a remix to her Aether Shell, and now it is going to be giving you -3 special cooldown on turn 1 and turn 4. It does boost the damage by 20 now, and it does have the adaptive damage, but that is pretty much it. Her Refine and Remix honestly is a bit underwhelming as someone who uses a lot of Reginn, and she's actually one of my core mythics in the Astra season, and I'm gonna be trying to plus and merge her this month with her remix banner. But unfortunately, she doesn't really stand out too much as an Astra mythic because she's not really able to contribute in a meaningful way to your team. Kanto is pretty nice, but still, there's much to be expected out of units nowadays, and she doesn't really have the easiest time triggering Gale Force, and she's mainly going to be used with her Aether Shell, but unfortunately the remix to it doesn't really give her any kind of damage reduction piercing, which she really needed. Even if she got like the half damage reduction piercing, that would have been, you know, an upgrade because that is something you really need as a nuke, but because she doesn't, she's still going to be getting stopped by many of the damage reduction skills. At least she gets the true damage, which is a bit helpful, but unfortunately, if you don't really have her at plus and merge, then there's not a lot of reason to use her in your Astra core. Ratatoskr is basically better in every aspect. She can support better, she can Gale Force better, she can also hit and run much better. At least I would have liked that they'd lifted the turn restriction, but unfortunately not everyone can win when it comes to the weapon refines, and Reginn is definitely gonna be at the short end of the stick. She can still use her base kit when it comes to a budget build because Panic Smoke 4 is a remix skill, and that's a pretty decent option because Freyr is not going to be able to cleanse the middle of the turn effects like Panic Smoke, so you can still use this and run her with Aether Shell Plus and pretty much hit really hard, or at least try to do that. And then Kanto with her weapon. You can also use her with Flared Sparrow, and Wings of Mercy is pretty much going to be the go-to slot B skill for her because she's going to be used on many of the player phase teams, and even on tanking teams, Wings of Mercy is still helpful so that you can Kanto afterwards and try to get to the pots. And now with her weapon refine, she's able to get the true damage and also not have to worry about any kind of attack or speed debuff, so that's at least good on the brighter side if you're trying to be optimistic, because there's not a lot of things that opens up for Reginn. She's still going to be running the same skills. Assassin Strike is going to be the slot B option so that he can stack up the pre-combat damage, and because she's got Kanto 3 in her weapon, Defense Rest Smoke 3 is something that he can run on her. Rinkah actually gets a pretty nice weapon refine, and this weapon did give her -1 special cooldown, so no quarter is a 2 cooldown special, and same goes for Godlike Reflexes. She does get +9 attack and defense and +8 speed and resistance in the combat now, and she does get the special charges both on her attacks and the enemy's attacks now, so it has been upgraded. And she also has the flat damage reduction on foe's first attack depending on 15% of her defense. Her defense is definitely on the higher side when it comes to a lot of the Axe Infantry units, so she's able to make productive use out of her defense and get this kind of unpierceable flat damage reduction, which is really good. She also gets 7 HP healing in the combat, so she's able to get that self-sustain, and then she also gets the regular pierceable damage reduction on foe's first attacks, including the brave attacks, so it is going to be 40% damage reduction. And keep in mind that this damage reduction is actually going to be applied after her flat damage reduction. And she also gets the damage reflection, which is a lot better than Brash Assault 4, and it's actually something that she can stack up. So she already has the flat damage reduction and the regular damage reduction, and she can even run no quarter to pierce the damage reduction and hit really hard. So she doesn't really have the highest attack stat, and getting this kind of damage reflection is actually pretty amazing. So in a way, she essentially gets Counter Roar 4 with its damage reflection, the brave, regular damage reduction, and also the healing. The healing is going to be in combat, which is not the worst thing because you can stack up even more healing, and she's an infantry unit, so she has got easy access to many of the skills. The special charges that she can get is going to be helping her retaliate back with some strong specials, and also allows her to loop Godlike Reflexes a lot better. And the damage reflection is something that we've seen before on Axe Infantry refines like Ocean, Echidna, and there was also Hans, who had originally that kind of damage reflection, but now Rinkah is able to do it a lot better by having the flat damage reduction and the regular damage reduction on top of it. And the special charges is an amazing effect that she has got. So if you're going to be building her up after this weapon refine, she can function with special spiral 4, and because of the special charges in her weapon, she can retaliate back with Aether that is going to be piercing through the damage reduction. And you can stack up the true damage with the finish skill and also stack up the healing. So it is going to be an amazing slotted skill for her. And even though she doesn't really have the highest resistance, she can still function with distant counter melee because you're going to be having a lot of damage reduction to help you, and you also have the healing. Attack speed O4 is something you can run so that you can have more speed, and if you want to go all the way with the Omni tanking, then Godlike Reflexes is something that she can run, and she can basically run Spurn 4 and stack up the regular damage reduction so that she can reflect a lot more damage, and inside attack speed is going to be helping you with the Omni tanking. And she can easily loop Godlike Reflexes because of the special charges in her weapon. Pre-charging is definitely going to be taking some support if you're not going to be running Buffer 4. I do like Spurn 4 a bit more on her because it does give you the true damage. And if you want to go with the nuking, then No Quarter is going to be the special of choice with Emblem Marth. So even against the guard effects, you're going to be able to retaliate back with No Quarter. And you can run the new Attack Defense Bulwark skill, which can give you the damage reduction and also the Super Obstruct effect, along with the healing. So you get the in-combat healing with her weapon and the finish skill, and then you get the out-of-combat healing with the Bulwark skill. So it is going to be really helpful. And Panic Smoke 4 is also something you can run in her slot C so that you can get the full penalty doubler effect. And this can go really well with debuffing allies, and mainly for her boons. She does want to focus on her speed and also on her defense. She's going to be relying on her damage reflection to do most of the damage, and No Quarter is going to be able to pierce through the damage reduction while you can still get the damage reduction at a first lobby scale and stack it up. Finally, if you want to use her in Aether Raids offense, then Null Counter Disrupt 4 is definitely going to be an option so that you can retaliate back to the Fire Sweep and the Wind Sweep effects, and No Quarter is going to be the special of choice to make sure that the nukes like Winter Inaka don't really live through the damage reduction that they've got. So it is going to be really important, and Emblem Marth is again going to be helping you in case you face any kind of guard effects or if you get rused by some kind of dancer like Triandra. So it is going to be an option, and she can easily function 3 spaces away from her allies, so this can help her not get destroyed by someone like Yoon. So she can Omni tank a lot better now after this weapon refine. Young Caeda gets a much awaited weapon refine to her Feather Sword, and it did give her +3 attack and also effective damage and instant vantage against sword, lance, axe, colorless bows, and armor units. She unfortunately doesn't really get the instant vantage against any kind of other colored bows, so that is something you'll have to watch out for. And she can also get the vantage effect against other foes if she's at or below 90% HP. She does get the +8 to all of her stats in the combat and also gets full null follow-up. And with her weapon refine, she's now able to get Canto 2, which is pretty nice because she's not going to be running a Neotrace skill a lot of the times, and especially if you got her in the holo forms, then you already have better things than running a Neotrace skill. So Canto 2 can help you position better, and then she can get even more attack and speed in the combat depending on the number of allies in 3 spaces of her multiplied by 3. So this can go up to +6, and overall you're going to be able to get +14 attack and speed in the combat. She also gets 40% damage reduction on foe's first attack, including the brave hits, so it is going to be helping her in case she faces any kind of hardy bearing opponent or she fails to kill someone with her first hit in the vantage range. So just like Reginn, she does depend on her first attack quite a lot, and not having any kind of damage reduction piercing is going to be a troublesome thing because nowadays nukes have a lot of damage reduction. You can still try and outsource that with Legendary Camilla or Legendary Female Lear, but having that in the weapon refine would have been really good, especially for a Vantage unit like her. And Vantage is something that she can do, but now she can even function in the player phase because of having the full null follow-up and Canto 2 built in her weapon refine. So if you did get her in the holo forms, or if you're on the fence, then I do think that her weapon refine is not really as good as Young Merrick's or even Duo Palas. It is somewhere around the Young Marth level, so not exactly the most insane refine, but still is helpful, especially with the premium skills that you got in holo forms. So it really depends on the amount of Forma souls you've got to spare. So if you're going to be running her with the Holoforms build, then she could still use Gambit 4, and that 22 damage is going to be really helping her quite a lot with the Vantage playstyle. She can also run Attack Speed Unity in her slot A, or run the Prime skill if you got that, and Guidance 4 is going to be an amazing slot C skill for any kind of flyer. And if you went the guard bearing route with her Holoforms build, then you can still use her with no quarter. And if you outsource the special charges status, then she's going to be able to retaliate back with no quarter. You unfortunately cannot really trigger it all that easily in the Vantage range, but still it is an option for the damage reduction piercing. And if you got her with the Rain Snap, then Prime skill's activation is going to be a lot easier, especially if you give her the attuned skill. You can also use her as a player phase unit now because of the things that she's got in her Weapon Refine. I mean, sure, she does have the Vantage in her weapon, but still, she can function as a player phase unit by triggering no quarter on her double. And because she's got the effective damage, she can still nuke with this kind of build with aerial maneuvers. And it is going to be giving her the teleportation, and because she's got Canto 2, she can easily retreat and make good use out of it. Emblem Marth is going to be making no quarter into a 2 cooldown special, so that is something that is really helpful for triggering it on your double attack with the special charges status that you can get from Young Minerva or Legendary Hinoka as the flying support units. Triandra is the last fairy to get her Weapon Refine and Remix, and Flower of Sorrow did give her +3 attack, and now she can debuff the defense and resistance of the foes in the cardinal direction for -5, and she also debuffs them to all of their stats for -8 for her own combat. For some reason, she has got the guaranteed follow-up attack in the Weapon Refine, even though she has got base 38 speed with a super boon, and then if she attacked after the combat, she's able to do 10 damage to the target and the foes in 2 spaces of the target. For her remix to her Frightful Dream Plus, she can now inflict the debuff to -5 to all of the stats, the guard status, and the discord status on the foes in the cardinal direction of herself and the target ally that she's going to be dancing. So it is a bit of a boost, but not the significant boost that we were looking for in a remix. And I'm not really disappointed by her Weapon Refine because I had no expectations to begin with because she's a dancer. They often don't really go for the supported Weapon Refines, and I do think that Peony and Mirabilis pretty much got the better Weapon Refines. Even Plumeria, like the Hexblade status is still pretty nice, but unfortunately Triandra gets the short end of the stick when it comes to the Fairy Weapon Refines. There's not a whole lot that he can do on her. Firestorm Dance 3 is going to be the remix skill that she has got, so at least she has got that, and she can give the Desperation status to the target ally, but still she doesn't really have the resistance to stack up to run a ploy skill like Mirabilis or Plumeria, and mainly she's going to be using aerobatics for the movement. And then at the higher investment, you're going to be using her with the dual skill and by running her with Guidance 4 or Soaring Guidance like any other flying dancer. The final Weapon Refine of this batch is going to be Fiora, who surprisingly got a pretty good Weapon Refine. So with her Airborne Spirit, she's able to get +8 to all of her stats in the combat, and she also gets the full null follow-up effect, which is really good for a flyer. And then she's going to be making productive use out of her resistance by having Dragon Wall built in her Weapon Refine. And just like Creator Sword, she's going to be following up the null follow-up in her weapon with the full tempo effect, which is absolutely amazing for a flying unit. So this allows her to trigger specials a lot easily, and she definitely does that because if her speed and resistance total is more than foe speed and resistance total -5, excluding the phantom resistance or phantom speed effects, then she's able to get the -2 special cooldown jump before her first attack. So this is kind of reminiscent of Rally Spectrum. It is only really going to be working on the damaging specials, unlike the winter units that we have seen before with Winter Dimitri and Winter Edelgard. So that's something you'll have to keep in mind, and that is actually going to be making her retaliate back with Iceberg or even no quarter at high investment. So this is going to be an excellent effect for her, and this can actually stack up with Rally Spectrum of Brave Male Robin. So you can easily trigger 4 cooldown specials by instantly having it, and then after the combat she's able to heal up 7 HP. So this Weapon Refine is actually pretty good for Fiora for her stat spread, allows her to function as a good tank with the damage reduction from the Dragon Wall, and also she's able to retaliate back with specials which are going to be doing a lot of damage because of her resistance. And she's going to be able to function as a much better lance flyer The competition is immense in that class type, but still, Fiora is able to stand out with this kind of refine. So she can easily be run with Guard Bearing 4 for stacking up the damage reduction, and then you can retaliate back with icebergs because of the special jumping in her weapon. And because she's got the full tempo effect, you can run a stand skill and then not let the enemy trigger any kind of special unless they have null guard. So this is going to be having really good synergy with her refine, and because she's a flying unit, Guidance 4 and Soaring Guidance are pretty much going to be the go-to options. You can even run a rain skill on her because it is going to be helping her for the combat, and plus speed IV is going to be the main boon that you should be choosing, and if you're going to be ascending her asset, then resistance is the next best option. You can also run her with Glacies with Emblem Mart's effect, so this is going to be a 3 cooldown Glacies that you're going to be able to retaliate back against, and you can just do a lot of damage, and attack speed unity is one of the options that she has got for her slot A. Unfortunately, even though she is the unit with Pegasus Flight is definitely not going to be holding a candle when it comes to comparison with Guard Bearing 4. So it's just a much better skill that he can run. And then finally at max investment, she can run No Quarter and even a Ploy skill making use of her resistance. So she's able to debuff the enemy speed, which does make it a lot easier for her to get the special jumping. And then you can run her with the Prime skill and also run her with the Squad A's BW seal, which is going to be boosting up her resistance and speed. You can check out my breakdown of the new Sacred Stones banner by clicking here, and make sure to subscribe because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Triandra's Remix and Refine. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.